I stared at my engagement ring, catching the sunset light, as he said the words, "I was never in love with you," so calmly across our kitchen table, where wedding invitations sat in neat stacks, ready to be mailed tomorrow. The champagne tastes suddenly bitter on my tongue as David's words hang in the air between us. Around us, our engagement party continues in full swing, crystal glasses clinking against silver trays, polite laughter filtering through the meticulously decorated garden of his parents' estate. The string quartet plays Pachelbel's Canon, the song we had selected for my walk down the aisle. "I can't do this," David repeats, his voice low enough that only I can hear him over the music. The wedding, the engagement, I need to call it off. I set my champagne flute down on a nearby table with practiced precision, grateful for years of boardroom presentations that taught me how to hide emotions behind a carefully constructed mask. 300 guests mill around us, completely unaware that the future they're celebrating has just shattered at my feet. 3 weeks before the wedding, my voice comes out steadier than I feel. "What exactly are you saying, David?" He finally meets my eyes after staring at the ground for what feels like an eternity. He's rehearsed this. I can tell from the careful blankness of his expression, the same look he uses for difficult client meetings. "I've been trying to convince myself this could work," he continues, each word measured. "The merger of our families, the social compatibility, the financial advantages. But the truth is, I was never really in love with you, not the way I should be." The diamond on my finger catches the light. 3 carats, custom setting, worthy of a Harrison bride, his mother had proudly announced when he proposed. The same mother who is watching us now from across the garden, champagne flute poised halfway to her lips, eyes narrowing as she senses something amiss in her perfectly orchestrated event. "When?" I ask simply. "When what?" David's rehearsed speech falters for a moment. "When did you decide you weren't in love with me? Before or after I signed the lease termination on my apartment last month? Before or after I declined the London position that would have advanced my career?" I maintain eye contact, never raising my voice. "Before or after I paid the non-refundable deposits for a wedding your mother designed down to the last flower arrangement?" He swallows hard, his confidence wavering. "It's not like that. I just realized—" 3 weeks before the wedding, I finish for him. How convenient. My gaze drifts across the garden, taking in details with the same precision I apply to contract analysis. The gift table piled high with packages from New York's finest stores, the custom monogram napkins with our initials intertwined, his best friend Ryan watching our conversation from beside the bar, something like relief visible in his expression. And there, partially hidden by a rose trellis, Alexis Martin, David's ex-girlfriend from law school, who wasn't on the guest list. I approved. The pieces click into place with cold clarity. "I'll handle everything," David offers, relief already softening his features. "The cancellation announcements, returning the gifts, you don't need to worry about any of it." "How considerate," I murmur, turning the engagement ring on my finger. The ring that matches the bracelet his mother insisted I wear today. "A Harrison tradition," she'd explained while clasping it around my wrist. What the Harrisons don't know is that my bracelet contains something they never anticipated. A tiny flash drive with every text, every email, every financial record I've been quietly gathering since I found the first suspicious message 3 months ago. "You're taking this better than I expected," David says, studying me with newfound wariness. "What did you expect?" I ask, genuinely curious. "Tears? A scene? Public hysterics that would make me the villain in your carefully constructed narrative?" His silence answers everything. I smile, thinking of the prenuptial agreement his family insisted upon, the one their attorneys drafted, and mine, amended, the one with specific clauses about breach of promise, financial recovery in case of canceled engagements, and compensation for career opportunities sacrificed in anticipation of marriage. The one David signed without reading because he was too busy planning whatever life he thought awaited him beyond our engagement. I should leave, I tell him, slipping the ring from my finger and placing it in his palm. The weight of it, of everything it represented, lifts from me with surprising lightness. "Enjoy explaining this to your guests." His hand closes around the diamond automatically, confusion flashing across his face. He expected begging, negotiations, compromises. He doesn't realize that the true negotiation is yet to come. As I walk through the garden, head held high, I can feel the whispers beginning. David's mother makes a move to intercept me, her perfect society smile already fixed in place. But something in my expression stops her cold. "Is everything all right, dear?" she manages, her voice carrying just enough for nearby guests to hear. "Ask your son," I reply, my voice equally public. "He's just made quite the executive decision about our future." I don't wait for her response. The catering staff parts before me as I make my way toward the exit, my phone already in hand. 3 rapid texts, one to my attorney, one to my financial advisor, and one to Janet, my closest friend and the only person who knows about the flash drive and everything it contains. "It's time," is all I write. Behind me, I can hear David's father demanding answers, his mother's practiced social laugh straining to maintain control of the situation. I can picture David standing exactly where I left him, the diamond ring still in his palm, wondering why I didn't fall apart at his carefully timed revelation. He thinks this is the end of our story. He has no idea it's just the beginning. The solitude of my hotel suite feels like armor after the chaos of the engagement party. I sit at the desk, my laptop open, the contents of my bracelet's flash drive now displayed across the screen. 3 months of evidence, meticulously organized into folders labeled with clinical precision. Financial records, text messages, email correspondence, social media, career impacts. I hadn't planned to become an investigator in my own relationship. That changed the night I picked up David's phone to order dinner while he showered, and a text notification appeared from Alexis. "I miss the way we were." That single message, quickly dismissed, briefly denied, then reluctantly explained as just catching up with an old friend, became the first loose thread that, when pulled, began unraveling everything. I opened the text messages folder first. The screenshots tell their own story, chronologically arranged from innocent-seeming reconnections 3 months ago to increasingly intimate exchanges. Alexis. "Remember that weekend in the Hamptons, before everything got complicated?" David. "How could I forget? Sometimes I think that was the happiest I've ever been." David. "The engagement was Mother's idea. Expanding the family portfolio through merger rather than acquisition, she called it." Alexis. "And what would you call it?" David. "A mistake I'm trying to figure out how to fix." I moved to the email correspondence folder. Unlike the texts, these were harder to obtain, requiring skills I never thought I'd need. But when your fiancé conveniently starts logging out of devices he once left open, certain measures become necessary. The emails reveal planning, not just reminiscing. Hotel reservations disguised as business trips, discussions of timing, considerations of aftermath. David to Alexis 6 weeks ago. "The wedding is becoming more real every day. Mother has taken over completely. You should see the guest list. I barely recognize half the names." Alexis to David 5 weeks ago. "You always said you'd find a way back to me. I'm starting to believe you." David to Alexis 4 weeks ago. "After the London deal closes, that's when it makes the most sense. Everything will be in place." The London deal. I clicked to the career impacts folder, pulling up the email I sent declining the London position that would have made me the youngest female partner in my firm's history. The position I rejected because David insisted our future was in New York, with his family's firm, with the life his parents had mapped out. The position that was filled just yesterday, removing any possibility of reconsideration. My phone buzzes. Janet, checking in. "How are you holding up?" "Working," I reply simply. She understands immediately. The evidence? Rock solid. I move to the financial records folder next. David never understood my insistence on documenting everything, on keeping receipts, on maintaining perfect records. It's just money, he'd laugh, in the way that only someone who has never had to worry about it can. Now, those records show every non-refundable deposit, every transfer from my personal accounts to vendors selected by his mother, every financial sacrifice made toward a future that David had already decided wouldn't exist. $32,000 for the venue deposit, $15,000 for the caterer, $8,000 for the photographer, $4,500 for the custom invitations already mailed, $145,000 total, not including the career opportunity costs. But the most damning evidence sits in the social media folder. David and Alexis were careful with their public profiles. No tagged photos, no obvious connections. But they forgot about LinkedIn, about mutual professional connections, who weren't as discreet. There it is, proof that the business trips matched Alexis's conveniently timed conferences. Photos from industry events where they appeared in the background of others' posts. Always just close enough to confirm presence, but distant enough to claim coincidence. And most revealing, Alexis's updated employment status from 2 days ago. New position, junior partner, Harrison Legal Associates, David's family firm. The same firm that had claimed they had no openings when I inquired about transitioning my career after the wedding. My hotel room phone rings, breaking my concentration. The front desk informs me that flowers have arrived. I don't need to ask who sent them. Please donate them to the hospital across the street, I instruct. 10 minutes later, my cell phone rings. David, right on schedule. You're not answering my texts, he begins. His voice that perfect blend of concern and authority he uses to manage difficult situations. I sent flowers. I'm aware, I reply, continuing to organize files. We should talk about this like adults, he continues. Figure out the most civilized way to handle things. I almost laugh. Civilized? Like announcing you were never in love with me at our engagement party? Like having your ex-girlfriend in attendance? Like already securing her position at your family's firm? Silence. Then, how did you know about Alexis's new job? It's on LinkedIn, David. Maybe advise her to update her privacy settings. More silence. I can almost see him recalculating, adjusting his approach. Look, his voice softens. I never meant to hurt you. These things happen. People grow apart. We can make this painless if we're both reasonable. There's that word again. Reasonable. The word powerful men use when they want compliance without consequence. I've already been reasonable, I tell him. I've been reasonable for 3 months while you planned your exit strategy. Now it's time for something else. What does that mean? Wariness enters his tone. It means you should review the prenuptial agreement, particularly sections 12 through 15. The prenup? That doesn't even apply, we haven't married yet. The agreement your family insisted upon has specific provisions regarding broken engagements, documented financial investments, and career opportunity costs. Your family's attorneys were quite thorough. I pause. Mine were more so. Another silence, longer this time. This isn't like you, he finally says. You have no idea what I'm like, I reply calmly. You never did. I end the call before he can respond. Returning to my methodical organization, my phone immediately buzzes with texts. David, please be reasonable. Don't do something you'll regret. David, let's meet tomorrow. Talk this through. David, my family's legal team will fight this. I don't respond. Instead, I send a message to my attorney with the completed evidence files attached. Ready when you are, I write. As I close my laptop, I catch my reflection in the hotel room mirror. I look different somehow, clearer. The woman who spent months collecting evidence while smiling through wedding plans. The woman who documented betrayal while discussing flower arrangements. The woman who knew exactly when to stop being reasonable. David thinks he delivered the final blow at our engagement party. He doesn't realize I've been preparing my response for 3 months. Victoria Chen's corner office at Chen Legal Partners exudes quiet power. No family photos or personal mementos, just awards, credentials, and the understated elegance of someone who doesn't need to prove her worth. She studies the evidence spread across her mahogany desk, nodding occasionally as she flips through my meticulously organized files. Impressive, she says finally, looking up at me with newfound respect. Most clients come to me after the damage is done. You've been preparing for battle before the first shot was fired. I sit perfectly straight in the leather chair across from her, my posture betraying nothing of the sleepless night behind me. I believe in contingency planning. Clearly, she holds up the prenuptial agreement, her red pen marks visible along the margins. This is particularly interesting. The Harrison family's pride and joy, their ironclad prenup. With modifications, I remind her. Victoria smiles, the expression of a predator appreciating worthy prey. Yes, the modifications your attorney slipped in. Excellent work there. The Harrisons were so focused on protecting their assets that they never considered someone might use their own document against them. I allow myself a small smile. David never actually read it. He was too busy explaining how it was a standard procedure for families like his. Their mistake. She sets the document aside, picking up the financial spreadsheet I created. These non-refundable deposits, the apartment lease termination costs, the declined London position, all meticulously documented. With receipts, emails, and relevant communications, I confirm, including the email confirming the position was filled yesterday, eliminating any possibility of reconsideration. Victoria nods approvingly. And these messages between David and Alexis? She whistles softly. Damning. How did you access these? Let's just say David's cybersecurity practices were as careless as his personal ones. I adjust the sleeve of my blazer. Everything was obtained legally, if that's your concern. My concern is maximizing your position, she corrects. And you've given me excellent leverage. She leans back, studying me. What exactly do you want out of this? I consider the question carefully. The same one I've been asking myself since I found that first text message 3 months ago. Justice, I say finally. Financial compensation for provable losses. And accountability. I want them to know exactly what they did and what it cost. Not public humiliation, Victoria asks, watching me closely. Many clients in your position would want blood. I'm not interested in spectacle. I'm interested in results. I meet her gaze directly. But I do want the truth to be known by those who matter. Victoria smiles again, more genuine this time. That's why you'll win. Revenge is emotional. Justice is strategic. She begins arranging the documents into distinct piles. Let's talk specifics. For the next hour, we construct the framework of my response. Not a wounded retaliation, but a precisely calibrated legal and social strategy. Victoria outlines potential Harrison family countermoves, while I identify weaknesses in their position based on intimate knowledge of their operations. They'll attempt to minimize this as cold feet or a mutual decision, Victoria predicts, which the texts directly contradict, I counter, and which David's own announcement at our engagement party disproves. There were 300 witnesses to his statement that he was never in love with me. They'll claim the prenup doesn't apply to a canceled engagement. Section 15 specifically addresses breach of promise, with liquidated damages for documented financial losses, a provision their own lawyers included to protect David from a scenario they never imagined he would create. They'll try to keep this quiet with a confidentiality agreement, which I'll decline. David values his reputation above all else. It's his primary vulnerability. Victoria pauses, impressed. You really do know your opponent. I was going to marry him, I remind her. I made it my business to understand what mattered to him. My phone buzzes, an email from David's mother. I show it to Victoria without opening it. Right on schedule, she notes. The family matriarch enters the game. Want to bet it's a lunch invitation to sort things out privately? I open the email. Victoria's prediction is exactly right. An invitation to meet at their country club tomorrow, phrased as concern for my well-being, but thinly veiling damage control. Accept, Victoria advises, but push it to Wednesday. Make them wait just long enough to worry, not long enough to formulate a new strategy. I compose a brief, polite response, accepting the invitation for Wednesday instead of tomorrow, citing prior commitments that don't actually exist. Perfect, Victoria approves. Now let's discuss the financial calculations. I suggest we start with a demand letter outlining the breach of promise claim, attached to an invoice for documented expenses, plus the estimated value of your lost career opportunity. And Alexis's new position at Harrison Legal? Victoria's smile turns predatory. An excellent point for negotiation. Equal opportunity violations are particularly damaging for firms of their stature. As we finalize our approach, my phone buzzes again. Janet checking in. David's been calling me, wants to know if you're doing something rash. I show Victoria the message. They're getting nervous, she observes. Good. I suggest you maintain complete silence with him for at least 48 hours. Let him imagine worst-case scenarios. And his mother on Wednesday? Listen more than you speak. Take notes. Make no commitments. Victoria begins packing the documents into her briefcase. And wear something impeccable. Power dressing matters in psychological warfare. As I leave her office, Victoria calls after me. One more thing. The Harrison family reputation relies on their carefully curated image. They'll do almost anything to protect it. I'm counting on it, I reply. Back in my hotel room, I spread the documents across the desk once more. Not in grief or anger, but with the cool precision of a general reviewing battle plans. My phone shows 17 missed calls from David, 5 from his mother, and even 1 from his father. None of which I'll return. Instead, I call Janet. I need a favor, I tell her. Information about who's attending the Barton Foundation Gala next week. What's the charity event? Why? Because the entire Harrison family will be there, along with everyone who matters in their social circle. I review Victoria's notes as I speak, and I need to secure an invitation. You're planning something, Janet observes. No, I correct her. I'm executing something. There's a difference. As night falls, I review each document one last time before carefully returning them to their folders. The foundation is laid. The strategy is set. The pieces are in motion. David thinks our story ended with his announcement. He doesn't realize we've only reached the first act. The Harrison family's country club radiates old money from every polished surface. I've been here countless times over the past year, always as David's accessory, always with his mother's appraising eye tracking my every move, noting each small failure to meet unspoken standards. Today, I enter alone. The navy Chanel suit I've chosen is both elegant and severe, a suit for business, not reconciliation. My heels click against the marble floors with metronome precision as the maitre d' leads me to the private dining room. Eleanor Harrison rises when I enter, a practiced smile fixed on her face. The smile doesn't reach her eyes, which assess my appearance with cool calculation. She's alone, not the family gathering I'd anticipated. Alexandra, dear. She extends her hand, not for a shake, but in that peculiar half gesture the upper class uses to establish contact without commitment. Thank you for coming. I was so worried about you after Saturday's misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. As if David's public declaration was a simple confusion rather than a calculated humiliation. Eleanor, I acknowledge, taking the seat across from her. No need for concern. I'm managing quite well. Her smile flickers slightly. She expected tears, dishevelment, desperation, signs that would confirm her view of me as inferior, unstable, unworthy of her son, even in rejection. David is absolutely devastated about how things unfolded, she continues, signaling for the waiter. He never intended to cause a scene. Interesting, I reply, opening my napkin with methodical precision. He seemed quite deliberate to me. The waiter arrives with champagne, already ordered, already poured. A power move meant to control the interaction before it begins. I leave my glass untouched. Men can be impulsive, Eleanor sighs, as if explaining natural disasters to a child, especially when pressured. Pressured, I repeat, maintaining neutral eye contact. Wedding plans, expectations, commitments. She waves her hand dismissively. It can all become overwhelming. I think what David needs is space to reconsider everything. Ah, there it is. Not an apology for her son's behavior, but a strategic retreat. A cooling-off period that would allow them to control the narrative while keeping me in suspended animation. I agree completely, I say, surprising her. David should take all the space he needs. Relief flashes across her face, quickly masked. I'm so glad you understand, dear. I always said you were a sensible girl. In fact, I continue, retrieving an envelope from my purse. I've prepared something to help with this transition period. How thoughtful, she murmurs, reaching for it. I place it on the table, just beyond her grasp. It's a formal invoice for all non-refundable wedding expenses paid from my personal accounts, along with documentation of career opportunities declined to accommodate the Harrison family's preferences for our future. Her hand freezes midair. I beg your pardon. $145,000 in direct expenses, I clarify, sliding a spreadsheet from the envelope, plus approximately $780,000 in career opportunity costs. Based on the London position, I declined at David's insistence. The position that was filled the day before he announced our engagement was over. Eleanor's composure slips for a fraction of a second before she recovers. Alexandra, surely you don't expect— I expect exactly what was outlined in the prenuptial agreement your family insisted upon, I interrupt smoothly. Particularly sections 12 through 15, addressing breach of promise and compensatory damages. Her eyes narrow. The prenuptial agreement was for marriage, not engagement. I encourage you to review the document, I suggest, sliding another paper from the envelope. Your family's attorneys included quite specific language regarding broken engagements. My attorney highlighted the relevant passages for your convenience. She doesn't touch the document. Instead, she takes a careful sip of champagne, buying time. When she speaks again, her voice has hardened. This is disappointingly mercenary of you, Alexandra. Is it? I pull out my phone, opening the text message folder. More mercenary than your son conducting an affair with his ex-girlfriend while planning our wedding. More mercenary than securing her a position at Harrison Legal, while telling me there were no opportunities for me there after marriage. Eleanor's face pales slightly. I don't know what David has told you, but— David has told me nothing, I cut in. His text messages, emails, and social media, however, have been quite informative. I place my phone on the table, screen up, displaying the most damning exchange between David and Alexis. The merger of our families through marriage was Mother's idea. A business transaction, not a relationship. Breaking it off after the London deal closes makes the most sense. Eleanor stares at the screen, then at me, reassessing. I am not the devastated almost bride she expected to manipulate. I am not playing the role assigned to me in their family drama. What exactly do you want? She asks finally, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Exactly what I'm owed, I answer calmly. No more, no less. And if we refuse? I retrieve a final document from my purse, the formal demand letter Victoria prepared. Then my attorney will file this in court tomorrow morning. The full evidence portfolio will become part of the public record, including all communications regarding how the Harrison family views marriage as a merger and their son's fiancé as a business transaction. Her eyes widen slightly. The Harrisons have avoided public court filings for generations, preferring to handle everything behind closed doors, away from prying eyes and public records. You wouldn't— I would have preferred not to, I correct her. But then, I would have preferred not to be publicly humiliated at my own engagement party. Eleanor straightens her spine, shifting to her final strategy. The Harrisons have significant influence in the city. Your career, your reputation, are built on my own merits, I finish for her, which is why the London office has re-extended their offer as of this morning, with a considerable signing bonus to compensate for the inconvenience of their initial position being filled. This silences her completely. Her carefully constructed leverage, the social and professional consequences she assumed would keep me compliant, disintegrates before her eyes. You have until Friday, I inform her, standing up. After that, the filing proceeds. As I turn to leave, Eleanor finds her voice. David was right about one thing. You truly aren't what we expected. I pause, looking back at her. That may be the only honest thing your son has said in months. The walk back through the country club feels different. Staff members who once looked through me now watch with undisguised curiosity. The whispers have already started. Not about the abandoned bride, but about the Harrison family emergency meeting, called immediately after my departure. In my car, I check my phone to find 3 missed calls from David and 1 text. What did you say to my mother? I don't respond. Instead, I call Victoria. It's done. And, she asks, exactly as predicted. Initial shock, attempted manipulation, then threats. Perfect, Victoria sounds pleased. The demand letter? Delivered and explained. They have until Friday. They'll counteroffer Thursday afternoon, she predicts. Low at first, but they'll meet our terms before deadline. The Harrisons would rather pay millions than face public exposure. As I drive away from the country club, my phone buzzes with notifications. David, his father, even his family's attorney, all suddenly desperate to reach me. I silence the phone, focusing on the road ahead. Let them panic. Let them scramble. Let them feel a fraction of the uncertainty they plan to leave me with. David thought his mother would handle the situation. He's about to learn that some situations can't be managed by family connections and practice charm. The next 48 hours unfold with the calculated precision of a chess match. I sit in my hotel suite, watching the Harrison family scramble through the digital breadcrumbs they're leaving in their wake. Every move exactly as Victoria predicted, every reaction confirming our strategy's effectiveness. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing with calls and messages, not just from David and his family now, but from mutual friends, wedding guests, and society acquaintances, all suddenly desperate to understand what's happening. I respond selectively, strategically, letting certain information flow through carefully chosen channels. The first domino falls at exactly 9 a.m. when David's best man Ryan calls, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Alex, I don't know what to say," he begins. David's version of events doesn't add up. "What version is he sharing?" I ask, already knowing the answer. "That it was mutual, that you both realized it wasn't working." Ryan pauses. "But that's not what I saw at the engagement party." "No," I agree, "it wasn't." "There's more, isn't there?" He lowers his voice. "About Alexis?" I don't confirm or deny, letting his question hang in the air. My silence is more damning than any accusation could be. "I thought so," Ryan sighs. "Listen, I'm backing out as best man. I can't support this." One by one, the dominoes continue falling. By noon, 3 groomsmen have withdrawn. 2 bridesmaids text to express their disgust at David's behavior. Even his cousin, Philip, a partner at Harrison Legal, sends a cryptic message. Whatever settlement they offer, double it. The firm can't afford this becoming public. A notification pops up on my laptop. Janet has forwarded an email chain accidentally sent to her company email. The Harrison family attorneys, frantically discussing damage control options. In their haste, they included the wrong Janet Thompson in their correspondence. Catastrophic potential for firm reputation, one writes. EH insists on handling personally, against our recommendation. EH Eleanor Harrison, still believing she can manage this situation through sheer force of will. Victoria calls at 3 p.m., her voice carrying a hint of amusement. The opposing counsel just reached out. They'd like to open a dialogue. Right on schedule, I note, checking my watch. What did you tell them? That we're available tomorrow at 2 p.m., not before. She pauses. How are you holding up with the social fallout? Surprisingly well, I admit. People seem eager to distance themselves from the Harrisons now that there's blood in the water. The advantage of having evidence, Victoria remarks. It turns speculation into certainty. My phone buzzes with another call. David's sister Carolyn, who I've always suspected saw through her family's facades. I switch over. Is it true? She asks immediately, skipping any greeting. About David and Alexis? What have you heard? I counter. Enough. Her voice hardens. Including that she's suddenly working at the firm in a position Dad told me was being eliminated for budget reasons? I say nothing, letting her connect the dots herself. The charity gala is tomorrow night, she continues. The entire family is expected to attend. Maintain appearances. Will you be there? I've received an invitation, I confirm, thinking of the Barton Foundation director who reached out personally after hearing concerning rumors. Good. Caroline's tone carries something new, respect perhaps, wears something unforgettable. After we hang up, I open my laptop to review the final piece of my strategy. The Barton Foundation Gala, where elite New York society will gather, where the Harrisons will make their first public appearance since the engagement party disaster, where carefully cultivated appearances matter more than reality, where I will ensure that certain truths become impossible to ignore. My phone rings again. Eleanor Harrison herself, finally breaking her silence after yesterday's confrontation. I let it go to voicemail, then listen to her message. Alexandra, her voice strains for its usual authority. This has gone far enough. We should discuss terms privately before things become unnecessarily complicated. A pause. Call me back, please. The please tells me everything I need to know about her current state of mind. At 7 p.m., my hotel room phone rings, the front desk informing me that David is in the lobby, insisting on seeing me. I decline the request and ask security to escort him out if necessary. 10 minutes later, my cell phone erupts with his texts. You have to talk to me. This has gone too far. My mother is impossible right now. Please, Alex, we can work this out. I forward the messages to Victoria without responding to him. She replies immediately, "Perfect. Keep ignoring him. He's spiraling." By evening, the situation has escalated beyond the Harrison family's control. Janet forwards me a message from a society columnist, seeking comment on rumors that the Harrison Chambers wedding was called off due to the groom's inappropriate relationship with a new Harrison legal employee. I don't respond to the columnist. I don't need to. The question itself indicates the narrative is already forming, with or without my input. Instead, I finish preparations for tomorrow's settlement meeting and gala appearance. The navy dress I've selected hangs on the closet door, conservative enough for serious business, striking enough for evening, and carefully chosen to photograph well from any angle. My phone buzzes one final time, Victoria sending the latest update. Harrison Legal senior partners called emergency meeting tonight. Sources say they're discussing leadership concerns and reputational damage. I smile, thinking of all the times Eleanor Harrison dismissed my career as a charming hobby that I'd abandon after marriage. Of David assuring me there would be plenty of time for work later, when I expressed concerns about declining the London position. They never understood that the skills that made me valuable professionally, strategic thinking, meticulous documentation, calm under pressure, would be equally valuable against them. Tomorrow they'll begin to understand exactly what they've unleashed. As I prepare for bed, I notice an email from London, the official contract for my new position with a start date just 3 weeks away. Perfect timing for after the settlement is finalized. David thought he was freeing himself from an unwanted future. He didn't realize he was setting me free instead. Victoria's conference room gleams with understated power. No ostentatious displays, just clean lines and the quiet confidence of success. Unlike the Harrison family's preferred oak-paneled chambers designed to intimidate with tradition, this space speaks of precision and competence. I sit beside Victoria, my posture perfect, my navy dress a subtle reminder that I've already begun transitioning to my new life. Across the table, David shifts uncomfortably in his chair. Beside him, his father, William Harrison, maintains rigid composure while their family attorney shuffles papers with forced nonchalance. Eleanor Harrison is conspicuously absent. "Let's begin," Victoria states, not a question, but a command. "We've outlined our terms clearly. Has your client prepared a response?" The Harrison attorney clears his throat. "We've reviewed your demands," he begins, infusing the word with skepticism. "While we appreciate Ms. Chambers' disappointment regarding the cancelled engagement," "Let's be precise," Victoria interrupts smoothly. "Not cancelled. Unilaterally terminated by Mr. Harrison, who publicly stated he was never in love with my client, after accepting significant financial commitments and career sacrifices from her." David winces. His father's expression hardens. Nevertheless, the attorney continues, "The figures suggested are..." Directly aligned with documentary evidence Victoria completes for him, sliding forward a folder. Non-refundable deposits, lease termination penalties, career opportunity costs, all meticulously calculated and supported. William Harrison finally speaks, his voice carrying that particular tone of authority that comes from never being questioned. This feels unnecessarily adversarial. We're prepared to offer a generous settlement to avoid further unpleasantness. Generous by whose standards? I ask, speaking for the first time. David looks up, startled by my voice. "Alex, please, this doesn't have to be so." "What?" I meet his gaze directly. "Complicated? Embarrassing? Public? You should have considered that before your announcement at our engagement party." "That was impulsive," he begins. "I never meant..." "To have Alexis Martin waiting in the wings," I finish for him. "To have already secured her position at Harrison Legal, while telling me there were no opportunities for me there. To coordinate your timing with the closing of the London deal that eliminated my career alternative." The room falls silent. The Harrison attorney looks between David and his father, clearly hearing some of these details for the first time. "We have a proposed settlement," William Harrison interjects, nodding to their attorney, who slides a document across the table. Victoria reviews it, her expression unchanged. Then, without a word, she passes it to me. The figure is exactly half of what we demanded. "No," I say simply, sliding it back. David leans forward. Alex, be reasonable. I've been reasonable for 3 months, I cut him off. While you planned your exit strategy, while you orchestrated my professional isolation, while you prepared to humiliate me publicly. I gestured to the settlement offer. This isn't reasonable, it's insulting. We can negotiate, William offers, his tone less certain. Perhaps if you outlined what specifically. The full amount, Victoria states firmly. As documented. With the additional stipulation that Alexis Martin's hiring process be reviewed by an independent employment counsel. That's completely outside the scope, the Harrison attorney begins. Is it? Victoria raises an eyebrow. Creating a position for your client's mistress while denying the same opportunity to his fiancé seems relevant to the breach of promise claim, especially when documented in Mr. Harrison's own words. She slides her tablet across the table, displaying the email where David discussed Alexis's position with his father. The one where William responded, "Best to keep this quiet until after the wedding is called off." William Harrison's face drains of color as he recognizes his own words. You were both involved, I say quietly. This wasn't just David's decision. It was a family strategy. The silence that follows is deafening. David stares at his father, betrayal evident in his expression. William straightens his tie, a nervous gesture I've never seen from him before. We'll need to confer privately, their attorney manages. Of course, Victoria agrees. You have 30 minutes. After that, we proceed with filing. As they exit to a smaller conference room, Victoria turns to me. They'll accept. William Harrison can't afford the firm implications. And the gala tonight, I ask? They'll try to save face, she checks her watch, which gives us approximately 8 hours to ensure that's impossible. When they return, the shift in dynamics is palpable. William Harrison leads, his son trailing behind like a chastised child. The confident patriarch has been replaced by a damage control specialist. We're prepared to meet your terms, he announces without preamble, with a confidentiality agreement. No confidentiality clause, Victoria counters. Standard non-disparagement only. That's unacceptable, their attorney interjects. Our client requires. Your client publicly humiliated mine, Victoria states flatly. He forfeited confidentiality the moment he chose to make his feelings known at an engagement party with 300 witnesses. William's jaw tightens. What assurance do we have that Ms. Chambers won't use this to damage our reputation? None, I answer honestly. But I'm not interested in public spectacle. I'm interested in truth and accountability. The truth can be subjective, William suggests carefully. Text messages aren't, I remind him. Neither are emails or documented employment decisions. David finally speaks up, his voice hollow. Just sign it, Dad. It's over. The papers are prepared with remarkable efficiency. As William signs the final document, he looks at me directly for the first time. You would have made a formidable Harrison, he observes. I'm more formidable without the name, I reply. As they prepare to leave, David lingers behind. Alex, can we speak privately? Please? I consider for a moment, then nod to Victoria, who steps outside. I'm sorry, he begins, once we're alone. Not just about the engagement, about everything. Alexis. It was a mistake. I got caught up in something that wasn't real. And yet you pursued it systematically for months, I observe, coordinating with your father, manipulating my career options, planning the exact timing of our breakup. He flinches. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did, I correct him calmly. You meant to hurt me just enough to walk away guilt-free, to make me the unreasonable one, the emotional one, the one who couldn't handle rejection gracefully. You just didn't expect me to have evidence of your planning. He has no response to this truth. The settlement will be processed by end of day, I inform him, gathering my things. I expect the funds transferred by noon tomorrow. And then? He sounds lost, the confident David Harrison nowhere to be found. And then I board a plane to London next week to start my new position. I walk to the door, then pause. I presume I'll see you and your family at the charity gala tonight? His expression shifts to alarm. You're attending? Of course. I give him the smile I've perfected in corporate negotiations. I've been on the guest list for months. It would be rude to cancel at the last minute. The dawning horror in his eyes is answer enough. The Harrisons had assumed the settlement would end this chapter completely, that I would disappear quietly, taking their money and their secrets with me. They don't realize this story has one final page to turn. The Barton Foundation Gala transforms the Metropolitan Museum into a glittering showcase of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the city's elite. Champagne flows freely, and million-dollar donations are announced with practiced modesty. I stand at the entrance, allowing myself a moment to observe the social ecosystem I once desperately tried to join. My dress, a deep emerald column with subtle architectural details, was selected with meticulous care, not black, too obvious, too victimized, not white, too bridal, too innocent, but a confident color that photographs brilliantly and stands out among the predictable pastels and neutrals favored by society matrons. "Ready?" Janet asks beside me, stunning in midnight blue. "Absolutely," I reply, accepting a champagne flute from a passing server. We move through the crowd with deliberate ease. The settlement money has already been transferred. Victoria confirmed it an hour ago. The paperwork is complete. The legal battle won. What remains now is the social reckoning, the truth that money can't contain. The whispers begin immediately. Heads turn, conversations pause. My appearance wasn't expected, despite my RSVP. The Harrisons had likely assured everyone I wouldn't dare show my face. Across the room, I spot them, the Harrison family tableau. David looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo, Eleanor maintaining rigid composure, William scanning the crowd with practiced nonchalance. They haven't noticed me yet, too busy performing normalcy for their social circle. Alexandra Margaret Barton, the foundation director, approaches with genuine warmth. "I'm so pleased you could join us, especially given the circumstances." "I wouldn't miss it," I smile. "The foundation's work is too important." She lowers her voice. "I must say, there have been quite a few rumors circulating. If there's anything you'd like to clarify." "Only that I'm grateful for the support I've received during this unexpected transition," I reply smoothly, "and excited about my new position in London." "London?" Her eyebrows rise. "The Harrison firm is opening a London office?" "No," I correct her gently. "I've accepted a partner track position with Wellington International. I leave next week." This information will spread through the room within minutes. The fact that I'm not devastated, not unemployed, not ruined by the broken engagement, it undermines the narrative the Harrisons have undoubtedly been cultivating. "How wonderful," Margaret squeezes my arm. "Though New York's loss is London's gain." As she moves away, I catch Eleanor Harrison's gaze across the room. She's spotted me now, her champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips, her practiced smile slipping for just a moment before she recovers. She whispers something to William, whose head snaps up, scanning until he finds me. I raise my glass slightly, a small acknowledgement. Not a challenge, not a threat, just a reminder that I exist, that I haven't been erased from the narrative. "The father looks like he's swallowed something unpleasant," Janet observes. "Wait until he sees who just arrived," I murmur, nodding toward the entrance. Caroline Harrison, David's sister, makes her entrance, with Philip, his cousin and Harrison legal partner, beside her. They head directly toward us, ignoring Eleanor's sharp glance of disapproval. "Alexandra," Caroline greets me with a kiss on each cheek, deliberately public. "You look stunning." "Thank you for coming," I reply, the words carrying multiple meanings. Philip shakes my hand, his expression serious. "The settlement has been processed, all terms met." "I received confirmation," I nod, "though I'm surprised to see you here tonight." "Family obligations," he says wryly, "though I've tendered my resignation from the firm, effective next month." This is unexpected information. Another crack in the Harrison facade. I raise an eyebrow. "Let's just say certain leadership decisions have made my position uncomfortable," he explains quietly. "The board meeting yesterday was particularly illuminating." Caroline touches my arm. "David's here with Alexis," she warns. "Mother insisted. Something about controlling the narrative?" Of course. Eleanor would never allow David to appear alone after a broken engagement. It would raise too many questions, create too much speculation. Better to present the new couple immediately, to suggest the transition was natural, expected, Appropriate. Perfect, I smile. Saves me the trouble of looking for her. Caroline's eyes widen slightly. You're not planning something dramatic, are you? Not at all, I assure her. Just a brief, polite interaction, hardly worth noticing. Unless you know what to look for. As the evening progresses, I move through the room with strategic precision, accepting condolences with gracious dismissal, sharing news of my London position with key influencers, creating the impression of someone thriving rather than devastated. Eventually, the moment arrives. David and Alexis, clearly trying to maintain a low profile near the edge of the room, find themselves directly in my path. There's no way to avoid the interaction without creating exactly the scene they're trying to prevent. David, I greet him calmly. Alexis, congratulations on your new position at Harrison Legal. The timing worked out perfectly, didn't it? Alexis pales slightly. She's wearing a dress remarkably similar to one I tried on during wedding shopping, something David must have mentioned to her. Alexandra, David manages, his expression caught between guilt and fear. I didn't expect to see you here. I've been on the committee for months, I remind him. It would be a shame to miss it just because of a change in personal circumstances. Alexis shifts uncomfortably. We should find your mother, she murmurs to David. Of course, I step aside slightly. I'm sure Eleanor has everything under control. She usually does. I pause, letting the double meaning sink in. Until she doesn't. The color drains from David's face as he realizes the interaction is being observed by half a dozen influential gossips, all of whom will note Alexis's discomfort and my composure. I wish you both well, I add, smooth and professional. Though perhaps next time, David, consider reading the prenuptial agreement before signing it. Section 15 was particularly relevant. I walk away before he can respond, leaving him standing there with the woman he betrayed me for, surrounded by witnesses who will remember every detail of this interaction. Janet joins me at the bar. That was masterful, she murmurs, subtle enough to seem gracious, pointed enough to raise questions. I sip my champagne, watching as Eleanor Harrison makes her way toward David and Alexis, clearly having observed our interaction. The truth doesn't need dramatic revelations, I reply. It just needs the right context. By the end of the evening, the narrative has shifted. Not through any public accusation or scene, but through 1,000 small interactions. The way Caroline and Philip openly allied themselves with me. The way I spoke confidently about my future. The way David and Alexis couldn't maintain eye contact when certain questions were asked. And most tellingly, the way Eleanor Harrison, social sculptor extraordinaire, couldn't control the story unfolding in her own carefully cultivated world. As we prepare to leave, Victoria texts me, second payment confirmed, all terms met. It's done, I tell Janet as we step into the cool night air. How does it feel, she asks. I consider the question, looking back at the museum where New York society continues celebrating, where the Harrisons are now trapped in a narrative they can't control, where the truth has found its own path to revelation. It feels like justice, I answer. Not revenge. Justice. 1 year later, London wraps me in gentle autumn rain as I stand at my office window, 30 stories above the Thames. The city unfolds below, historic and modern, traditional and innovative, a perfect blend of what was and what could be. Unlike New York, London never demanded I fit into its social hierarchy. It simply offered space to create my own. My assistant knocks softly, entering with the afternoon's portfolio. The merger documents are ready for final review, she informs me. And Mr. Wellington would like to confirm dinner tomorrow to celebrate closing the Harrington acquisition. Thank you, Emma, I reply, accepting the folders. Please confirm the dinner. She hesitates at the door. Also, that reporter from Financial Times called again. They're doing a feature on women reshaping global finance, and would like to include you. I smile. Schedule it for next week. As she leaves, I turn back to the window, the irony not lost on me. 1 year ago, I was planning a wedding that would have effectively ended my career. Now I'm being profiled for reshaping an industry. My phone buzzes with a text from Janet. Have you seen it? No context needed. I know exactly what she means. I open my laptop and navigate to the New York Times business section. There it is, the announcement of Harrison Legal's restructuring. The carefully worded press release can't disguise the reality. William Harrison has been forced into early retirement following strategic disagreements with the board. The firm he built over 4 decades, the legacy he valued above all else, has slipped from his control. I close the article without emotion, neither satisfaction nor regret, just acknowledgement of inevitable consequences. The settlement money I received was merely financial compensation. The true reckoning came through the questions that couldn't be suppressed, the pattern of behavior that couldn't be explained away, the truth that gradually emerged through 1,000 small revelations. My phone rings. Carolyn Harrison, who has become an unexpected friend through the wreckage of her family's facade. I assume you've seen the news, she says, without preamble. Just now, I confirm. How are you handling it? Better than you might expect. Her voice carries a lightness I don't remember from our New York days. The restructuring actually means I'm taking over Asia operations, something that would never have happened under the old regime. Congratulations, I say, genuinely pleased for her. That's significant. It is, she pauses, though father is telling everyone he orchestrated the whole thing as part of his retirement plan. I laugh softly. Of course he is. And David. She hesitates. You don't need to tell me, I assure her. No, I think you should know. Something in her tone makes me listen more carefully. He and Alexis are divorcing. Turns out the position at the firm wasn't enough to build a relationship on. I absorb this information without surprise. And how is Eleanor managing this fresh social catastrophe? Drinking more, smiling less, blaming everyone but herself. Caroline sighs. The usual. After we hang up, I return to the merger documents. The information about the Harrisons filed away with all the other data that no longer impacts my decisions. They were once the center of my planned future. Now they're just people I used to know, characters in a story I've moved beyond. My calendar reminder chimes softly. Dinner tonight with Michael, the architectural historian I met during a Wellington client event 3 months ago. Not a replacement, not a reaction, but something entirely new. Something based on mutual interests rather than social compatibility, on genuine connection rather than strategic alliance. Outside my office, Wellington International continues its efficient hum, the firm that recognized my value, that offered partnership track based on merit rather than marriage, that never questioned my commitment because of my gender, the career I nearly sacrificed for a family that would never have valued it. I review the Harrington acquisition documents with focused precision. The same skills that once documented David's betrayal now build something constructive, a merger that will preserve jobs, create opportunity, expand possibilities. The strategic thinking that once planned my response to humiliation now shapes company futures. At 6, I close my laptop and prepare to leave. My assistant has already gone, the office gradually emptying as London transitions from work to evening. I gather my things, the routine familiar and satisfying. My phone buzzes once more, an email notification. The London properties I've been considering have a new listing. The Kensington townhouse with the walled garden and the separate office space, perfect for someone planning to stay indefinitely. I schedule a viewing for tomorrow, another step in building this new life, this reality that exists entirely on my terms. As I leave the building, the rain has stopped, the city glistening under emerging stars. I walk rather than taking a car, enjoying the energy of a Thursday evening in London. So different from New York, yet equally alive with possibility. I pass a newsstand, catching sight of a society magazine from New York. The cover features a charity gala, the same Barton Foundation event I attended last year. There in the background, Eleanor Harrison maintaining her social position with grim determination. David standing awkwardly beside her, Alexis nowhere to be seen. I don't purchase the magazine. Their story is no longer part of mine. The settlement money sits mostly untouched in carefully selected investments. Not because I need it, my Wellington partnership provides more than enough, but because it represents something important. Consequences, the financial acknowledgement of what was taken, what was sacrificed, what was manipulated. My phone buzzes with a text from Michael. Found that book on Victorian architectural revivals we discussed. Bringing it tonight. I smile, typing back a response as I continue walking. This is what I couldn't have explained to David or Eleanor, that there was a world beyond their social constraints, beyond their family legacy, beyond their limited understanding of what constituted success or happiness. 1 year ago, I stood in an engagement party, watching my planned future disintegrate around me. I heard the words, "I was never in love with you," and felt the ground shift beneath my feet. What I couldn't have known then was that those words weren't an ending, but a beginning. Not a rejection, but a redirection. Not a failure, but a freedom. David Harrison thought he was discarding something that had served its purpose. He didn't realize he was releasing something that would soar beyond his reach.